if
Alien
that's something that resonates with you.
Information theory. I don't know. Who's that by? What's his name?
Andrew Gallimore.
Oh, no, I never heard of it.
You're not familiar with that? I don't know if that's up your alley or not.
It's a conscious.
Well, I should. I mean, I've been in the subject for 30 years, so I should. But maybe it's a new one on me. I haven't heard that.
Okay, we're live. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening in the UK, where we are talking today to Colin Wilford, and I have my assistant researcher on this topic, Chase Williams, joining me from Texas, and my assistant Desta Barnaby is in the background producing. In Canada, we used to have a show called now what's the name of the show? As It Happens in Canada, which was a live show that went every day for an hour and a half, from 6:30 till 8 o'clock, and it was the latest breaking stories of the day, all sorts of weird stories about UFOs and behind the scenes stuff on news. So this is what I'm doing today. I figured I saw this story about the alien autopsy, and we're going to get into this. I got dragged into this with getting the document from Australia. I put the document out, and then Chase helped me with the document. Chase was involved from early on, and we've sort of bounced it back and forth. And today there's a development, and so I wanted to get Colin on today to bring us up to date on the latest information that's happened, and maybe give us some background on the story, the alien autopsy story, and what has happened today. Because I don't know if this is linked to all this other UFO stuff that's breaking now, or what's going on, but we needed an update, and I haven't really even read the story. I just sort of know what the basic story is. So welcome, Colin, and thanks for joining us, and thank you, Chase, for joining us. So what happened today, Colin, and is it important?
Well, it's interesting because, I do get notifications for anything that mentions the alien autopsy subject or Ray Santilli. And just to fill people in, if you have been living on another planet, then that story was like now 26 years ago, 1995, there was a big deal about claims of an autopsy piece of footage that was shown on Fox TV. August 28th, 1995, Fact or Fiction with Jonathan Frakes. And it caused a huge buzz. It was a massive, it's a huge thing because it was literally an autopsy, black and white, supposedly of an alien being carved up on an autopsy table, allegedly from a crash, which later it was marketed as Roswell. But I mean, something I always make clear, because I have my own group about it on Facebook, the Alien Autopsy Analysis. And the claim was that this was the footage of the Roswell crash. It later transpired, if you believe the cameraman, that this was a crash, funny enough, in Socorro, which is quite, it's still in the news with other incidents we may know about, but a crash in May 1947, but actually predating Roswell. May 31st, 1947. So basically, this footage was shown. It caused massive controversy around the world. It was reshown, I believe, 2 more times on the Fox network. It actually made a lot of money. Let's not, we can't deny that this generated a lot of money. There's no money to be made in UFOs, but unless you're Ray Santilli, because he actually had supposedly this footage of a being being autopsied by a number of doctors, one woman nurse, we can see a guy behind the viewing mirror. And this has been a very controversial piece of film for, 26 years. As I say, it was the anniversary, 25th anniversary was last year, 2020. It still became even more, he died down. The story kind of changed. What Ray marketed it as a genuine alien autopsy or whatever it was. He didn't, I don't think originally he said it was an alien. He didn't know what it was. The cameraman said he worked for the military and he was part of the photographic team or the main cameraman in that room in a lab in Dallas, Fort Worth. And he kind of went by that story until about 11 years later. Then it kind of changed, and they brought out a comedy English film here with a few American Hollywood actors in it, and it kind of changed then from being a recreation film, and the story being that the film from these canisters supposedly brought over, I don't know if it was like some confusion in how many canisters, but he bought at least over 20 different canisters of possibly up to 3 minutes on each canister, these old film old cameras, and he brought these over to England and it oxidized. So basically the story now, some 11 years, is suspicious for me because I do go from the angle that there was a conspiracy behind this controversial subject. But the basic news story as of 2006 was it was a recreation basically, and that the original film oxidized, so that then had to remake it. They had to bring in a model maker called John Humphreys. There's some further claims that the guy filming it was a gentleman called Spiros Molaris, a magician who I've had a few arguments with over the years. And that's all sorts of other controversies. We've not put a finer point on it, but that's sort of the story up until 2019 when Kit Green, I think the memo came out. I believe it was just the year before the COVID. So that all kicked off with, the Edgar Mitchell stuff. And basically what those memos were saying was that, Kit Green, as of 2001, I believe, he this email chain or whatever correspondence, he was implying that, to his knowledge, that was something he'd saw at the Pentagon in 1987 or 1988. It wasn't quite sure, but after he left the CIA and he'd been brought in to view this footage, and he has kind of backtracked a little bit because he actually authenticated it, saying that, the footage is genuine, blah, blah, blah. It's what I saw in the Pentagon. So again, this brought up the subject as being, well, is it a recreation? I mean, is it based on a real piece of footage? My contention was it was always a real piece of film. It got out there and they had to sort of do a damage limitation. So that's a short story. I could talk much longer about that. And there's other pieces of film as well, just to briefly mention, there's a piece of debris footage. It runs a couple of minutes of supposedly some of his hand six-finger panels, because the being on this film was a six-fingered being, not like a four-fingered one we hear about in Roswell. And there's also this mysterious other autopsy where the being's legs are both intact. So supposedly there were four beings in this crash, and they were female, or at least had appeared to have female genitalia. So it's all very interesting. And so, yeah, that was a current story. So the latest thing now, I guess, with everything that's been going on, I get these notifications. So I do get anything to do with the autopsy or Ray Santilli, I do get the email through. And I was looking at this literally about just after 2:00, I got the email saying, now this was a post on something, you have to forgive me because I'm not a massive crypto fan. I've got enough things to contend with. And I know for a lot of people, all these sort of currencies and, it goes over my head. So I know some people will probably understand this more than I would, but this is something that popped up, and I found an article which I can read from, but they actually provided a link to something called a site called rarible.com. And basically the claim here, and this is clearly or supposedly being posted by Ray Santilli. I'm not saying it is Ray, but it has got his face on there. So it's either someone who is Ray or is representing Ray, possibly his colleague Gary Shoefield, who was his partner, supposedly in purchasing the footage from the cameraman. And basically what he's saying on this site, which again, I've never even heard of this site before, but he's saying, and I'll just read it out because it's quite a short little blurb here. It says, after purchasing the original Alien Autopsy negative 16mm film frame will be sent to you by special delivery alongside copies of the CIA correspondence which validates the film. So basically he's offering to sell this still frame from the Alien Autopsy, albeit this frame, to make this subject even more complicated, and there's so many different things that have been thrown at it that, I mean, I think, Grant, you've mentioned this before, how they seem to just throw up loads of different stories, that it's so suspicious that it's all a type of distraction. They don't want, they just want you to, give you four different versions of the story, and then no one knows what the truth is. So he carries on, the debate over the existence of extraterrestrial life was settled when the CIA authenticated the most famous piece of UAP evidence. So he's kind of using this UAP term here, which we all know now about. And also, I think when he's referring to the CIA, he's referring to possibly Kit Green's original comment on the, through that thread back in 2001, the Alien Autopsy film. Now, for the first time ever, a piece of that history is available to own. So basically he's selling it, and he's saying on the 25th, Wednesday, 25th of May, which is 2021 today, a mind-blowing NFT of frame from the film will be auctioned off on Rarible, the largest decentralized creator-centric NFT marketplace. To make this item even more historic, the buyer will also receive a physical 16mm frame from the original frame. The starting bid is 450 WETH, which is WETH. I'm not quite sure. I guess that's a cryptocurrency of some sort. The frame clearly depicts the autopsy of an extraterrestrial said to have crash landed in Roswell, New Mexico in August of 1947. I think that's then sign up to bid now at Rareable. So basically, it seems to be offering this still frame, which is, if you look at the frame, this frame, this image it looks very similar to that from the alien autopsy, but this frame first appeared actually on the Daily Express newspaper about 2017. And it wasn't particularly clear. It looked very similar to it. So I think the claim is then that he's saying that if you go by the 2006 story, basically, that it was a recreation, that this is one of the original frames of the original alien autopsy. And what you saw in 1995 on Fact or Fiction was just a recreation supposedly made by John Humphreys, filmed by Spiros, and so forth. So basically, the crux of the matter is it seems to be, and it's got like a minimum bid here. I mean, so I don't understand. The minimum bid 450, where for then it goes up to something like, I'm guessing there's that 1 million or some 1,192, 416 point. So I don't know if that's the minimum. Oh, that maybe that's the max. I don't really understand it, to be honest with you. So I'm not, like I say, I'm not an expert on that. And so it's back in the news. Is it all distraction? Is there something more coming on the alien autopsy? Is it muddying the waters? It's open for debate. I think Dave Altman's in. I did message him in a little chat. I just messaged earlier. He's in contact with Gary Shuford.
I hate to interject, but just for the audience, I mine Ethereum, which is ETH or ETH, and WETH is it's called wrapped Ethereum. It's another tokenized version of the Ethereum coin. Minimum bid on this is 450 ETH, which current market value is about it's pretty expensive. That's 450. I don't know what the exact value of ETH right now is, but let's say it's $2,000. So it's about $900,000, which is in that ballpark. Curious. Sorry, Colin, I don't want to interrupt there. Oh, it's version right here, 1.192 million.
NFT. Do we know what NFT actually is? I know it's like a blockchain.
This stands for non-fungible token. That's what it stands for. So it's it's a digital. If any of you you guys and gals are familiar with some of these old school multiplayer online games where you might have gotten on eBay and bought a sword for a character on WoW or World of Warcraft, or you could think of a non-fungible token as just a non-duplicatable digital item. It can be a painting. In this case, it's a version is a photograph of this. And there is blockchain technology behind it, which makes it secure and non-duplicatable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the original article that I actually received was this cryptoslate.com, and it's the title is UFO sighting authenticated by the CIA. CIA is getting sold as an Ethereum NFT. So that's
there are no bids on this yet. So it appears that if it is Ray Santilli that's selling this, he's asking 450 wrapped Ethereum for it, or current value of 1.192 million. Auction ends in 2 days, 13 hours, a little more, 20 minutes. So
you're on the site where they're auctioning? Are you on the site where they're auctioning? Yeah.
Yes.
So it is actually up there.
Rarible is RARIBLE.com. And if you go to Rarible's homepage, you'll see this at the top in the banner. It's the first top left featured NFT for sale, original alien autopsy film frame. I wonder if anybody's going to bid on this. Now, the really curious part of this, Colin, to me, is the fact that he's claiming that copies of the CIA correspondence, which validate the film, will be included in the sale of this. Is that right? Have any of you seen that? Have we ever seen correspondence?
The only thing I could say is that we have the document that you were involved with, that I gave you the document when I first got it.
Sure.
And Kit Green had a conversation with Richard Dolan and confirmed that the document is legitimate. So that may be what they're claiming, because I can't see it. It doesn't make any sense to me. The CIA is not going to validate a document for some private person about an alien. That's the last thing that's going to happen there. It's not like they're in that kind of business.
CIA correspondence. Yeah. So it's likely this email communication. Yeah.
There is someone on Twitter who I was sort of directed to, called Roswell NFT, at Roswell NFT on Twitter, and they seem to have just sort of appeared the last few days, sort of advertising this. I don't know if that seemed to be based in California, and I believe I did an interview with Gary Shoefield, who's Ray Santilli's partner, last year, and I believe he was based in LA, so I don't know if that's actually him, but I did question about, because I put up an image from the alien autopsy, and I said, well, here's a clearer one, and it's free, and it's one of the, so I put up an image from that original 1995 film, and they replied, but it's also not the original frames from the CIA verified film, and I replied, well, that's open for debate. I mean, Kit Green was talking about the moving footage released in '95 originally, and not this still image, though it's similar. I would like to see the photo authenticated. How do you plan to do that? So that they haven't replied to that, and I'm not sure how they're planning to authenticate such a thing. So I guess the question is this just more smoke and mirrors? Is this an attempt? I mean, I've said on my page, my Alien Autopsy Facebook group analysis,
you mentioned the fact you do have the Facebook group, that you're and that you were involved from 1995 on, right? Yeah,
I've been into UFOs, Grant, since 1990. I mean, following when it happened, I bought the original VHS, which is quite rare now, the mail only one, which actually had that piece of footage of the entry supposedly into the lab in Dallas Fort Worth, which wasn't actually on the cell phone video. It's literally a couple of frames that Bob Shaw investigated at the time. There was much controversy, and there's been some claims that people have said that that's from a baseball, the room where the baseball players get prepared for the match or whatever. And there's all sorts of claims and counterclaims. But I've been involved, following it, and I've done a few, a number of lectures here. I did visit. I was invited out to Laughlin last year for the UFO mega conference, which I did manage to do, but there was some, let's just say, litigious claims by certain people to not be able to speak there, although I did speak in a limited capacity. And it's, it makes you wonder why something so controversial and seen by millions of people now. I think, the claim is like more people have seen that piece of footage than probably any other, UFO stroke alien type film. So why it still causes such controversy, I can leave up to, the viewers to decide. But for me, it's still very much a hot potato with regards to the whole, crash retrieval, especially with what's happening lately with, Jack Valet. I've just got his book through, and I saw your interview the other day, and it's talking about obviously another crash not too far away in New Mexico, 1945. So I don't think this story is going to go away anytime soon. I did see that Philip Mantle, who I've sort of had a few cross words with, but we're still sort of, I guess, I don't know, on friendly terms, who knows. But,
Philip certainly doesn't believe that the film is authentic. By the way, for our benefit and for the viewers' benefit, if you go to Rarible.com and you go to this listing and you click on Ray Santilli's profile, and on the profile you can select created. It's lists on sale, collectibles, created, things that are attached to his personal profile. There are a few items. He's got some things for sale: Hendrix Electric Ladyland, original Monkeys tickets, early Rolling Stone stuff. But he has one thing here that's listed as not for sale called Alien Hated. And the description is an unknown entity caught on camera in 1992. It's a very curious photograph. I don't know if any of you might be interested in that, but it's. Are
you able to share your screen? Maybe you can share your screen and show us.
I can't, but I could just turn this around. It's a different device. Can you see that? Okay.
Are you able to ask questions on that? Because if they're putting this thing up for sale on Raribles, are you able to question them and stuff like that?
That was my question, and it doesn't seem like there's any way to discuss this with.
Question the seller. I mean, it would make. I can't see how you could sell anything on there if it's rareable unless you can ask the guy,
right?
What questions.
But I tell you what, I mean, if he's selling this thing for $1 million, maybe we could get him on the show and ask him to talk about it. I mean, if he wants to sell it more, I mean, it looks like there's only 7 people that have liked or hearted this sales page.
Wow. Of course, the story's just
got another
hour
right.
or two.
Yeah. So
I think you have to be a member to actually comment, don't you? Is that it? Because I tried liking it or something. And
oh, you know what? That may be it. Let me try and log in here. I think I have a connection account.
Oh, there you go. You're a rareable guy. You got lots of money, I guess.
No, I don't know about that. I have an account there.
We'll all pool our resources together and we'll buy it for ufology. Hey, Grant, maybe.
Yeah.
While he's looking at that, Colin, talk to me about your Facebook site, because you're pretty much the alien autopsy guy.
Yeah, I mean, back when people were still saying, oh, most people would say it's well, they even they've admitted that what you see on most comments on YouTube now is like, oh, they admitted it was blah blah blah. So I guess it could be seen that I did quite a brave thing by putting up a group back in 2015 saying, calling it Alien Autopsy Analysis, and using frames, looking at all the characters, looking at, there's so much to the story. I mean, it is one of the most, I mean, even Philip will admit how big, the book, he brought out a republished book of with lots of new information or documents rather. But yeah, so back in 2015, it's called Alien. If you go on Facebook, you don't have to join. You just check it out for free. It's just Alien Autopsy Analysis, where I question the whole, not only just the alien autopsy footage, because a lot of people don't even know that's, for instance, that other piece of footage with the hand panels and the debris on the table, which is very intriguing in itself. But so obviously, supposedly connected, because the panels have, like I say, these 6 fingers, which would seem to be these beings, but also the claims of this other autopsy, which a number of researchers like Maurizio Beata, Philip Mantle and his wife, Reg Presley, Colin Andrews, all saw for a very limited, or I believe I think Mr. Beata saw it maybe twice with Reg. They were lucky enough to actually get another viewing in Ray's office in April 1995, and so for them that was the first actual footage they saw. So for where most people have only ever seen the original, what we saw at on August 1995, these few researchers actually saw this other autopsy that was actually far more graphic, gynecological type thing, and that's an interesting story in itself. And I know Maurizio's talked to Paola Harris about that. And Phillips, doesn't deny this, but people have seen it. I think Ray he does seem to be, he sort of walked back, even like having knowledge of this other piece of footage. It is one of the great mysteries. One of the things I bring up, but yeah, my crux of what I say in my group, and it's pinned to the top, is that I believe there's an ongoing conspiracy behind the alien autopsy. I think something happened, that they had that footage, that the authorities didn't know nothing about it. He was able to mark it. He was able to bring it over to Heathrow as he originally claimed. Bits of his stories have since changed. I do believe that closer to publication, that certain people got closer to him. I think there was break-ins, that there was, that's a fact, that's break-ins that was documented by not just, a number of people at the time, told to Reg Presley in his book. So there's a whole lot more to it from people. If you're just going to think that it's just that, suddenly they, it was all a hoax. And we still haven't seen any of the claims. These bodies were apparently, literally, if you believe that there were models were cut up and put in bins around London, they were supposedly filmed in a flat in Camden and not a lab in Dallas Fort Worth. So yeah, very controversial, and it certainly got me into a lot of trouble. I've had a few death threats, weird things with my phone, and all sorts of strange things over the last, especially since Kit Green, that sort of accelerated things. When that information came out, it sort of take a more darker tone, although I was getting some conflict with certain people before then. So yeah, it's one of those ones where you've got to really, the devil is in the details. I say, it's not easy to just convince people if you're not going to look at all the stories, the characters involved, and people like Bod Shell, who's now, I think he's still serving 28 years for. I'm suspicious about what happened to him and how he was kind of framed, because he gave a lot of credibility to the alien autopsy back then. But Yeah, what can I say? It's a big deal. I should say that Philip, I was Dave Altman, who's I think you know Grant, don't you? Who he's kind of involved in the Hollywood sort of side of things. He's friends with Gary Shoefield, and I believe he's giving possibly some interviews. So I did sort of reach out. You might want to reach out and maybe get.
We did, but he just gotten up. He was supposed to join us, but he got. So I think he did talk to Gary. So explain who Gary was and what was his role.
Well, Gary Shoefield was his partner. So basically, 1992, this story, although we sort of pick it up in 95 when it became public, and Reg Presley talked about it, January 95. He mentioned it on TV. The actual story officially goes that 1992, Cleveland, Ohio, Gary Shoefield and Ray Santilli had flown out to get some Elvis, some rock and roll film, maybe not just for Elvis, but so like a trade fair, or this is before the internet, and they were looking to get some footage, and then they'd put things in newspapers in the Ohio, I guess Cleveland, Ohio area of rock and roll footage. There was supposed to be this missing one of the early footage of Elvis Presley singing, and there's some counterclaims about. Is everyone still with us? Yeah. So there's some counterclaims about, was this cameraman the one who sold the Elvis footage, or was it someone who knew the camera? It doesn't really matter. Supposedly, Gary and Ray Ray was the only one went back to this cameraman who told him, "Would you be interested in buying some of this other footage?" And supposedly, he and Ray flew to Clearwater, Florida, where he projected the original, I guess, Alien Autopsy onto the wall, and obviously Ray was sort of invested from that moment on, but was not able to arrange enough money. So I think he put a down payment down. So Gary is kind of not as he wasn't there for the original showing, but certainly he is seen as the major partner of Ray. And I did do an interview with Gary last year when the lockdown, which was interesting. But from my perspective, is I feel like they're still being manipulated by people from behind the scene. It's still a very touchy subject. I think they're going to stick by their story that it's a recreation, and I just feel like this goes along with it. This story today just seems like an attempt to, Ray gets made out, he's just in it for the money, and clearly anyone just coming from this subject, they're going to say, well, he's clearly just interested in all this crypto and whatever the equivalent, so you're not going to have a good appreciation of the person, even though if you never met him, you'll go along with the story that it's all a scam. He's in it for the money, and I'm not sure how they're going to authenticate this photo for, if they haven't done it before, they're not going to do it now. So yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a deception yet again, and they're trying to take you away.
It does, however, seem like Chase just showed the screen there that he is selling other stuff that fits in, like the Beatles, the monkey tickets and stuff like that, where it does appear that it's coming from Santilli's page, that he is actually trying to sell this thing, as opposed to like some scam that the Weekly World News put out or whatever.
No, I 100% believe that. I mean, it is him, but what I'm saying is I believe that there may be some pressure on to actually put this image out and cause sort of controversy, and maybe, make people, because basically he's not seen as like an honest person. So anyone who's like trying to make, $1 million or whatever he's trying to make from this image, then he's not gonna be respected in my view, and that's sort of going to bring doubt over the original footage. So yeah, he was involved in the movie, in the memorabilia. He's involved with music. He's done lots of stuff in the music industry. So he's a successful man. He's made already. He must be a millionaire. I don't think there's any denying that. So it's just a question of what the motive, and what do they want you to think? What do they want you to think about the Alien Autopsy? What footage do they want you to accept? Do they want you to accept that photo? Do they want you to think that the original footage that was shown was, just a complete scam and made by a model maker? These are the questions that people need to ask, really. It's
are you going to update this on your Facebook? Because we're going to.
I already did it. I did it within seconds of it going, about like 3 or 4 hours ago. So it's all. I've done like 3 bits already, and I did say to you know, to Dave Altman, you know, if you can get Gary, I'm happy to talk to Gary. And, you know, if they're trying to, you know, if they, I kind of get the impression that they've been told to do this. That's my own personal impression. You know, I said other views are available, you know, but I did get the impression that they've been told to sort of market this in a way, maybe to make people more cynical about the reality of the subject, and maybe there's some further deception coming, you know, along the way.
I mean, if Santilli's in money, I don't deny him that he wants to make money. I mean, it may be just because there's so much controversy now about UFOs and stuff, and Danny Sheehan and investigations and stuff, that he figured now's the time to move, because he was offered money before, wasn't he? Wasn't it? He was offered to buy all this stuff from him, and he basically turned him down. And I guess he figures now's the time to strike.
Well, possibly. I mean, but I personally believe if there was any real reality to this footage, you wouldn't be allowed to keep it. I mean, I always said that was confiscated, all those original reels. Whether the fact that, you know, they transferred it to video and was able to market it, that's a separate thing. But I can't believe any of those original films or photos would be allowed to be kept, unless, of course, it's for some current running disinformation program, which could be, you know, this could be the early stage of. I think the other thing I needed to say was, I don't know, because Philip posted something which was relevant when Dave Altman posted earlier. He copied me in and Philip as well, and you, I believe. And so he's got a quote from Christopher Green. I don't know if it's a recent one from Philip, because he hasn't really replied, but this is what Christopher Green says. And it's referring to Philip. He says, these are far, in regards to the CIA documents that I mentioned, these are far from official CIA documents. My emails being referred to are private, as is the attached private. I have asked often for it to be retracted, because these all were written before I learned I was never finally actually shown anything classified about the autopsy in question, and were years long after I resigned from the CIA in 1985. Also, I have learned the original autopsy film I saw was not original, and further review has convinced me it was not credible. My first impressions, I have long since publicly stated, were incorrect. I take credit for being mistaken and apologise. You may quote the above, Christopher Green, MD, PhD, FAAFS. And I kind of said to him, and Philip hasn't replied, but then that's nothing new. I don't feel like communicating with me. But he said, I said to him, well, would it be good if he could say how he learned such a thing, as in, you know, how did he learn that it wasn't, you know, wasn't real? And, you know, is he going by the story that, you know, like, you know, Spiros and John Humphreys came out with? So again, it's all, and I'm not sure if that's original. That might be a quote from today. Philip didn't actually say it, or it may be from, you know, maybe a year ago, but I'm not sure if I'd heard that quote before, so it's worth mentioning. Oh, am I still there? Sorry. Someone was ringing through.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll maybe talk to Dave. Agreed to do an interview. We'll get some details from him, and I guess people could follow it on your website. Have you got contact with Ray?
Yeah, I mean, I've got his email address. I do contact. I mean, I don't really hassle him. I mean, I do get the impression, you know, this is only just my impression, and studying the subject for this last, you know, 30 years or so, is that I believe Ray is obviously closely monitored. And then, you know, I reached out to him. You know, he gave permission eventually to show the alien autopsy, not the actual film, but the movie, the comedy type, black comedy type film they made about it, to be shown at last year's conference, and then that kind of fell through when I wasn't able to give my lecture. So we are kind of on like friendly terms. I mean, I'd like to chat to him more. I haven't met him face to face as such. And I mean, it's another thing that I find a bit odd. I mean, Gary seems to have taken over as regards to this sort of publicised, you know, and I always get the impression that, you know, Ray was quite, wasn't happy talking about it. You know, it obviously brought him a lot of hassle over the years, and it seems strange now that he's sort of supposedly putting his toe in the water again about something that, you know, that's not something that he probably enjoys having to talk about, even though he has appeared on a couple of documentaries. He did a bit on Philip's recent 4-part one. He was a couple of clips in there, but I still feel he's quite closely controlled. But I'm happy to reach out if Ray wants to do. I'll be more than happy. I'd love to talk to Ray, but it's just, as I am Gary, but I just wonder if we'll ever get, you know, the straight answer regarding the alien autopsy. But it's all a case
if you happen to get him, Colin, let him know that And he doesn't already know if he's trying to sell this for 450 ETH. The market's down right now. Now's the time to buy. And if he's got 2 days left, you know, when the market goes up, that instead of 1.1 million, that's going to be 2, 3, 4 million. I don't know if he's going to relist it if he doesn't sell it, but it would be nice to at least get some feedback on, you know, the supposed CIA confirmation that he refers to, a correspondence, if it is in fact, you know, this email chain that we're all familiar with, or if it's something else. Yeah.
Well, this is it. I mean, that's the crux of the matter, because you know, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't, you know, sorry.
No, maybe we'll bring you back when we get Dave on here. If you can reach out and see what you can find next day or two. And Dave agreed to come on, and I think he talked to Gary. So we'll maybe do an update on this thing and see where it goes, because if it's only got 2 days to go, I'm sure somebody's going to want to talk about it if they want to sell it.
Yeah, it's an interesting timing, as you say, Grant, you know, happening sort of, was it the 25th today, you know, supposedly announcements maybe next month about things. So if things are hotting up in some ways, you know, where it's going, we don't really know, but it's certainly...
It's an interesting story. You've got a hot story. You've been working on all these years. It's very controversial, and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, it definitely is, but there's a lot of smoke there. I'd say, you know, if it's just a hoax, well, you know, you wouldn't. How can you write so much about a hoax? You know, it's like, well, it's either real or it isn't. But you don't, you know, haven't got all these little things, little side stories to it, and all this other footage. And you know, when you're going to fake something, you don't usually, you know, you've got to fake a UFO video. It's like, you know, 10 seconds long or something, maybe, or maybe a couple of minutes. But you don't sort of fake a 20-minute alien autopsy. You know, it's not. That's a lot of hard work involved there, and a lot of money as well.
Okay, so let's leave it at that, and you dig what you can, and I'll update you with what I get. You were first on the scene here because this is the first people will have heard about this, and you're the guy to talk to because you know all the stories, you know all the ins and outs of it. So I appreciate your speaking with me, and I appreciate Chase being on the line there and confirming this sort of thing. So let's give it 24 hours or whatever, and maybe we'll do it again and update people as to what's going on, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be all over this.
Sure. It'll probably be in the papers as well. I wouldn't be surprised tomorrow here in England some as well. It'll probably be, whether it'll be front page of the Daily Star, I don't know, but that's the sort of thing that's the kind of thing they kind of run with now. So
yeah, I think that the record right now globally for NFTs is forget the artist name, but you know, I want to say he sold 68 million at Christie's, $68 million worth of Ethereum for a digital NFT like that. So, you know, then maybe this thing could take off, and instead of 450, if that's starting bid, it could go, who knows? So yeah, this is really exciting, Colin. Thanks so much, Grant, Colin, for pulling me in. Desta. Yeah, this is exciting stuff.
Beautiful. Okay, so let me know what you find out. I'll talk to Dave, and we'll update and maybe do another show in a day or two and bring people up to speed. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Grant.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Desta.
Hey, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Desta.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Desta.
Bye.